Oh, you're ready. I'll begin. First of all, I'll introduce you to our cast of characters. You must meet some of the townsfolk of Lamonic Bibber. This is where our story takes place. This, right here, is Polly. Polly is a 9-year-old girl with sandy hair as lovely as a turnip and teeth that sparkle like diamonds in the mud. This is Friday O'Leary, a strange, wise old man, as old as the hills, who knows all the secrets of space and time. This is Alan Taylor, the former biscuit billionaire, but now headmaster of St. Pterodactyl's School for the Poor. He just happens to be a gingerbread man with electric muscles, standing 15.24 centimetres of ultimate tastiness tall. This is Old Granny, the oldest lady in Lamonic Bibber, and despite appearances to the contrary, she does not like sherry very much at all. This is Martin Laundrette, after whom all laundrettes are named. He's the town laundrette owner, in case you hadn't guessed. This is Mrs. Lovely. Mrs. Lovely, despite her name, is actually married to Friday O'Leary, and she runs the local sweet shop, and she is lovely. This is Billy William III, and he's the town butcher, and he's the mankiest, dirtiest, most horrible butcher you've ever met in your entire life. You never buy meat from him, I guarantee. Not twice anyway. And this is the Rue de Lally himself, Mr. Gum, the hero of our book, the villain of our book. Are you sitting comfortably? Did I ask that already? Okay. Right now. Here we go. Chapter 1. In the Dead of Winter. 'Twas the dead of winter, and the little town of Lamonic Bibber lay under a blanket of snow and ice. Everywhere you looked, there was snow and ice. On the trees, snow and ice. On the ground, snow and ice. Inside the Museum of Snow and Ice, snow and ice. It was the coldest winter anyone could remember. Inside the inns and taverns, the menfolk sat around blazing log fires, drinking their ale and telling stories of never-to-be-forgotten heroes like, what's his name, and that tall man in the shirt who killed all those dragons. In the houses, mothers put their young ones to bed, soothing them with gentle lullabies about fierce lions and crocodiles. And in a little cottage by the meadow, a hobbit sat reading The Lord of the Rings and microwaving his feet to keep warm. 'Twas the dead of winter, all right. The streets of Lamonic Bibber were quiet at that late hour, but presently there came the sound of footsteps as 3 shadowy figures turned into the high street. And now I will tell you who they were, for I have seen them before, and perhaps you know them too. The leader was Friday O'Leary, a wise old man who knew the secrets of space and time. He carried a lantern which cast a ghostly yellow light on the icy cobblestones. Next came a 9-year-old girl called Polly. She too carried a lantern, and it shone brave and true, just like her pure, strong heart. And last of all came little Alan Taylor, the headmaster of St. Pterodactyl's School for the Poor. He was a gingerbread man with electric muscles, and he was only 15.24 centimetres tall. Alan Taylor was far too small to carry a lantern, but he had coated an acorn in glow-in-the-dark paint, and that was almost as good. "'Tis late, friends," whispered Friday O'Leary as the church bells rang for 10 o'clock, belting out like absolute marshmallows in the wintry night. "We should be getting home, for who knows what strange spirits are about in the dead of winter." "There are no strange spirits, kind Friday," chuckled Alan Taylor. "Methinks you have been spending too much time in the taverns, listening to the idle tales of drunken fools." "Hey," said Polly, "why's everyone a-talking all funny like and read old books? We only done come out to get the takeaway kebab." But just then a horrible wailing noise rose in the wind like an out-of-tune opera singer being dragged down a blackboard. Polly and Alan Taylor jumped in fright, and Friday did a dozen press-ups in terror.
"Orp!" he trembled. "What was that?"
"I got no idea," gulped Polly, "but don't like the sound of that sound one little bit."
"What if,"
squeaked Alan Taylor, bravely weeing himself in fear,
"what if it's Mr. Gum?"
Now, at the mention of that name, they all went very quiet, because there was nothing worse than Mr. Gum, not even accidentally falling into a volcano full of history teachers. For Mr. Gum and his no-good friend Billy William III were the worst criminals Lamonic Bibber had ever seen. And they had done some of the most shocking things of all time, including 1. Trying to poison a massive whopper of a dog called Jake to death and destruction. 2. Trying to steal £1 billion of poor little Alan Taylor. And 3. Tons of other stuff I can't think of at the moment.
"But Alan Taylor, no one's seen Mr. Gum for ages,"
said Polly.
"Nonetheless, he might have come back,"
replied Friday gravely.
"For as the famous saying goes, he might have come back. Let us investigate."
And the 3 friends set off to see what was what, their lanterns swinging hopefully against the darkness. With each step they took, the wailing grew louder until
"It's coming from the alley behind Mrs. Lovely's sweet shop,"
said Friday, and even as he said those words, a hunched-up figure appeared in the narrow passage, staggering towards them with outstretched arms like a mummy. Not the nice type of mummy, obviously. The type with dusty old bandages who's always chasing you through museums at night because you dug them up out of pyramids because you were a scientist, and that's what scientists do.
"But hold on,"
frowned Polly.
"we haven't been messing round in no pyramids lately. That can't be a mummy after all. Why," she exclaimed, "it's Mrs. Lovely, and she's been all duffed up and mangled."
"No!" cried Friday in distress, for Mrs. Lovely was his wife, and he loved her like a barbecue. "No!" he cried into the cold, cold night. "No!" Chapter 2. Talk of the Devil. But alas, it was indeed Mrs. Lovely, owner of the sweet shop and general all-round goody. Onwards she came, stumbling half-blind over empty pizza boxes and wailing miserably all the time. At once, Friday ran up to offer her aid and comfort and some hazelnuts, and she collapsed unconscious in his arms. It was very dramatic and everything.
"What happened to thee?"
Friday sobbed, clutching Mrs. Lovely to his ear.
"What badness has befallen thee, O darling wife?" "Save your questions, Friday," advised Alan Taylor. "Mrs. Lovely is in shock, and it will take more than hazelnuts before she can tell us her terrible story. Come, let us get her to a place of rest."
So together the heroes carried Mrs. Lovely to a nearby inn. A sign over the door read, "The Talk of the Devil Tavern. No demons, phantoms, ghosts, ghouls, spirits or werewolves allowed. Or witches. Or little dolls that come to life and try and get you. Vampires welcome." Actually, on second thoughts, no vampires either. Polly pushed open the heavy wooden door, and in they went. It was warm and cosy inside, and they were glad to be out of the cold, but upon their entry, suddenly everything went quiet. The menfolk stopped singing their merry songs and looked afraid. "Demons!" cried one, starting up and pointing with a trembling finger towards the visitors. "'Tis a horde of demons come to eat our bones!"
"You're right, Jack," shrieked another. "It's demons for sure."
And at that, the menfolk flew into a panic, hiding under chairs, under tables, in pints of beer, anywhere they could. One man disguised himself as a fruit machine and stood there in the corner, covered in cherries and coughing up pound coins.
"Blimey, you menfolk is well ignorant," said Polly indignantly. "We're not demons."
"Not even slightly?" asked one of the menfolk anxiously.
"No," said Polly firmly. "You lot's drunk too much beer and it's turned your brains all fuzzy and full of bad imaginations. Now go home, menfolk, and get some sleep, and don't blame me if you all got terrible headaches in the morning. I shouldn't wonder."
"OK, 9-year-old girl," said the menfolk. "You're the boss, for some reason." And off home they went. "I do apologise about all that demon talk," said the innkeeper as he led Polly and her friends upstairs. "But though they were drunk, the menfolk were right to be afraid. You never know who's going to come through the door in this terrible season when spirits and ghouls are at large. Why, only last week an evil skeleton came in and did a poo in the carpet. How I hate the dead of winter," he exclaimed. And the innkeeper showed the heroes to a cosy little bedroom with wooden floorboards, bowed once, and disappeared back downstairs. With great care, Friday dumped Mrs. Lovely down in the little bed. Polly fetched a flannel, and gently she scrubbed the slime from Mrs. Lovely's goodly face. And Alan Taylor hopped up onto her chin, and gently he flossed her goodly teeth.
"I shall take first watch," said Friday, pulling up a chair. "If she wakes, I will wake you too. But until then, she must not be disturbed. The truth is a lemon meringue!"
he yelled at the top of his lungs, as he sometimes liked to do. At once, Mrs. Lovely's eyes snapped open, and she sat bolt upright in bed like a startled panda caught shoplifting bamboo.
"What? Hey, boing!"
she gabbled, looking around in confusion. "Where am I?"
"Fear not, Mrs. L," exclaimed Friday, "for 'tis I, your beloved husband, me."
"Oh, hello, Friday," said Mrs. Lovely weakly. "What's going on?"
But suddenly she caught her breath and drew the bed cover to her cheek in terror.
"Goblin Mountain,"
she murmured in the flickering candlelight.
"Now I remember."
"Tell us your tale, dearest wife-face," said Friday, tenderly clasping her nose to his. "But will you do it as a song?" he asked eagerly.
"Now is not the time for songs, my love," replied Mrs. Lovely. "Besides, I'm all weak and feeble. I'm just going to say it normally."
"Bah!"
sulked Friday, but Mrs. Lovely was determined to tell her tale her own way.
"It was like this," she began. "You know how I'm always after unusual herbs to make my sweets. Well, the best ones grow up on Goblin Mountain. So early this morning, up I did climb to get at these herbs. But soon a blizzard whipped up. I couldn't see a thing, and then suddenly I found myself under attack from creatures unknown. They bit and scratched, and I thought I was doomed. But somehow I fought my way loose and escaped. After that, I don't remember anything, and now here I am safe and sound. Hooray!"
"What do you think them creatures was?"
asked Polly.
"I'm not sure," said Mrs. Lovely. "That's why they were creatures unknown. But like I say, it happened on Goblin Mountain, just outside the Goblin Cave, where the Goblin River runs swift and blue."
Said Friday, twirling his famous imaginary detective's moustache, as detectives are wont to do, and as an ex-detective I would know.
"Goblin Mountain, Goblin Cave, goblins, goblins. It all points to one thing, Mrs. Lovely," he announced triumphantly. "It was badgers who attacked you, a gang of wild badgers driven mad by the cold winter and too much sugar."
"We'll get them!"
cried Polly, sticking her head out of the window towards Goblin Mountain.
"Oi, badgers!"
she shouted, just in case they could hear over long distances, like whales or telephones.
"You've gone too far this time, you stripy rascals. We're going to come and sort you out."
During all this, Alan Taylor had been sitting on an ashtray on the bedside table, listening carefully, and now it was his turn to speak. For he knew all about the natural world, and that was why he was the headmaster of St. Pterodactyl's School for the Poor.
"I don't think it was badgers," he said. "You see, badgers mainly come out at night, and Mrs. Lovely was attacked by day. Also, badgers tend to attack small mammals such as stoats, voles and marmots, a type of large ground squirrel. They hardly ever attack Mrs. Lovely. You know what I think it was?"
"Badgers?" asked Friday, who hadn't really been listening properly.
"No," said Alan Taylor. "I think it was goblins."
"Goblins?"
whispered Polly in fright.
"Goblins!"
moaned Mrs. Lovely fearfully.
"Goblins,"
nodded Alan Taylor gravely, and the moon slid out from behind a cloud, and its light slipped into the room like a long skeletal finger, and from up high on Goblin Mountain they seemed to hear horrible laughter. It was probably just their imagination, but it gave him proper goosebumps all the same. Chapter 3. In the Court of the Goblin King. So let us go now far, far from the room at the tavern where our heroes sit covered in goosebumps. Far, far from the high street where Martin Laundrette is working on a very secret invention, which probably won't get explained until a bit later. Far, far from the woods on the edge of town where Friday's secret cottage lies hidden. Far, far from Lamonic Bibber, and away we go, over the frozen fields and streams, until we come to a place where the snow falls like Frankenstein's dandruff, and the wind howls like Dracula stubbing his big toe on a coffee table, where the way is hard and steep and twisty, and where no sunlight ever seems to fall. Goblin Mountain. Up the cold, bare mountainside we go, almost to the very top, until we come to a horrible, gaping hole, all ragged and torn from the rock, and there is a terrible din coming from that hole, like nothing ever heard before. For 'tis Goblin Cave, and 'tis ram-packed full of goblins. Big ones, weeny ones, sort of in-betweeny ones, goblins. Bald ones, hairy ones, dirty, great big scary ones, goblins. Giant ones, tiny ones, nasty little spiny ones, goblins. Stinky ones, clean ones, not really, they were all stinky, goblins. And here they are, goblins, goblins, goblins. Goblins, I tell you. Yes, wherever you looked, it was tails and spikes and fins and fur and extra arms and knobbly knees and all sorts. One of the goblins even had 2 heads and sat there constantly arguing with himself. No, he didn't. Yes, he did. No, he didn't. Oh, and talk about badly behaved. These goblins were always up to mischief, scratching and biting, hanging from the ceiling and gobbing the ones below. Ugh. Cheating at Monopoly, you name it. The only time they ever shut up was when the Goblin King arrived to give his commands. And there he sat, right in the middle of all that chaos. Right in the middle of all that chaos, sprawled on a great throne made from a rusty dentist's chair he found in the mountainside one afternoon. His eyes were red and bloodshot, and his long, cruel fingers dripped with silver rings he'd stolen off old-age pensioners. And in his big, red beard sat a dark green emerald, gleaming nastily. My word, those goblins loved that big fat jewel. "Shiny thing!" they'd cry whenever it caught the light. "Shiny thing! Shiny thing! Shiny thing!" All their shouting drove the Goblin King crazy, but he had to put up with it. It was just part of the job. At the king's side stood his partner in dirt, a shady character known only as Burger Wizard III. He wore a robe made from an old sack which said low-quality pork chops, and he was smoking a pipe full of mud. "Fancy a little puff, me old Goblin King," coughed the Burger Wizard, brandishing the pipe. "It's really nice." He lied through another cough.
"Get lost, Flemmy," replied the Goblin King. "Where's me supper? I'm starving me face off here."
"No problem," said the Burger Wizard, or BW for short. He reached into his filthy robe and pulled out a bunch of steaming chicken entrails.
"Delicious," growled the Goblin King, swallowing them down whole. "Now, I got important kingy stuff to do. Mighty Goblin Army," he commanded. "Tell me your news, or I'll give you a Chinese burn."
At this, the captain of the Goblin Army ran forward, his lieutenant at his side.
"News good,"
Captain Ankles reported.
"We attacked the old woman and duffed her up."
"Who cares about some stupid old woman?" roared the Goblin King. "What I wants to know is how's me evil plan coming along? You built that tunnel yet?"
"Nearly finished,"
Squealed the lieutenant, whose name was Oink Balloon.
"One more day digging, then we finally there."
"That's more like it," snorted the Goblin King. "Now for a nice long snooze."
He closed his eyes and put his feet up.
"Shiny thing! Shiny thing!"
screamed the goblins, pointing at the emerald in his beard and jumping up and down like carrot cakes.
Shiver me whiskers, scowled the king. These creatures is noisy. Whoever thought leading a goblin king with a goblin army would be such a bother?
And we'll leave it there for now. Part 2 coming soon.